this is the lights on. Carefully you go. Squeezy. That's on the inside. That's okay. Right. Yeah, so just a quick video really, touch a few topics. I think I'm going to do another one where I'm thinking about maybe I should set up a MGTOW channel. And because at the moment I kind of loop MGTOW into other things and so on, so I sort of give it some type of a mixture of interest then, and some of them that overlap or interconnect, because it could be quite boring just talking about pure MGTOW. However, there are a lot of good videos out there that kind of touch upon the subject without realising, and I think they would make quite a good additions. Like just break it down this section, like, you know, what Eastern European women are looking for, or, you know, men of a certain culture or background, how things have worked, how things haven't. Like, you know, in Japan they've got issues with people being single, and they've got women that they're kind of considered tough women that nobody wants to date because they've got over a certain age, so they might be in their 30s, and these guys are chasing 25-year-olds. The thing is, what I would say the thing is basically, if they're still fertile, they're still able to have children, and there's low risks of health problems, then being potentially being 30 isn't a problem. And then you've also got this new potential. It could be quite radical for Japan if they started freezing eggs. If they started freezing eggs, it means you can pair up with somebody. You know, basically, she's got loads of fertile eggs stored, and potentially, you know, any age you could have children. You can even have surrogates, and you could have these other stuff that I talked about, these different, potentially what the future might hold, and experimental models might end up as. There's a lot of change potentially for there's just so many cars I've looked at. For society, but it's risky though. It's risky because it basically, I've been watching some stuff to do from Jordan Peterson. He's got some brilliant psychologists, brilliant stuff he touches upon, and you know, it's not too far out of his subjects. And some of it's like, well, that's brilliant, male masculinity. You know, it's talking about that and how men are looking for these role models, and also talking about how, I mean, basically I read from it is that in order to make a new order you need to destroy the old one, and that's what's been happening with men. Like, you can't have these traditional values, they're sexist, or, you know, this behaviour is wrong, or you need to accept that we're gay, or we need to do this and that. And there's different elements as well. There's what I'd call the rainbow cult, but there's certain groups, like nobody. So when people go off and celebrate a Pride Day, then nobody talks about heterosexuals are never involved, or S&M community, or could be basically fetish. You know, somebody's basically has a particular sexual fetish, and they feel that's quite liberating to sort of have them feelings out there. But that's because sexuality it falls into different models. So the natural order is you'll be pairing up with someone to breed, to have children, to build a society. But a socialist sexual order, you don't need to. Maybe your priority wasn't to have children, but it was to excel. So you actually might like somebody of the same gender because you're not looking to have children, but you're looking to expand yourself socially. It's about success then. But you'd think your offspring, but it wouldn't necessarily be a problem if you are a part of a group. I could have whizzed out then. But yeah. Because you know your family would do well, so you're just the breadwinner. You know, it's a bit like a beehive. You only need a queen bee to have the offspring. You don't necessarily have to be the father to them to serve the hive. So that's that kind of group mentality. In the natural order, it could also be a way not to overpopulate it beyond your resources, because once you go beyond your resources, it only leads into war anyway, because you're fighting, the same groups fighting over the same resources. So the passive way out would be say, fine, you know, and by exiting it out for the reproduction. However, we can recreate that. People are saying, well, I could get someone to have a child for me, or we could adopt a child and create this family, and all sorts of other structures are in place that weren't there before. I mean, sure, there was people that would adopt, because when you colonise or take over tribes, you'd probably take their children. And some cultures have practiced quite some evil stuff, whereby they would kill off the adults and take on the children to sort of reprogram them. And that's the other issue, is that you've got a rapid shift and changes socially due to social media, and I guess the need for a new world order has always been pushed forward. So there's different new world orders that have come out. So some of the original ones might have been to get women into the workplace, to get women to be equal like men, and then the next step is to make men more like women. So they're trying to be feminised, they're being, you know, scrutinised, they're being pressurised, they've been demonised. So to be a straight male is a problem in a society where the power shift has been, right, well, we'll protect the women, which is great. Men want to protect women from harm, but there's also all these other things that come in place saying it's not fair, we want this, we want that. They're put in place, but they don't necessarily, nobody actually does want them. It's a bit like politics. You know, the people that want to certain changes are the ones that are voting, but actually what happens, it's gorgeous, the night sky at the night, this time of night. What happens is they don't vote. The ones that are most affected by the policies don't vote. Crikey, I'm fighting off some cold. It just keeps hanging around. I'm sure something else is in it. It's a few things where it's just like being a bit drained, a bit tired, and that'll come on to something else that I can talk about in a sec. So yeah, so there's lots of different interesting models. I think what I need to do is get some videos together. Maybe I'll do this experiment. Is I probably need to do is a long video on MGTOW. So, and I need to break it up, make it obviously interesting. Otherwise, I can just go on and on and on about stuff that nobody cares about, or it's less important or less meaningful, or for anyone that's just entering this kind of world, like thinking, I'm having trouble with a relationship, it's not working. I'm told I should date, I should be looking for a woman. I'm told by some people I should just sleep around. I'm getting all this weird information from people that's not very good. What do I need to do? And then so I said, well, I've heard about MGTOW, what does that mean? And then that can be where you don't need to do these destructive models, because actually sleeping around might do you some psychological harm. Forcing yourself into a relationship when you're not ready will cause you harm as well. You're likely to pair up with somebody because of their availability and their interest in you, rather than you're actually attractive or interested in them. You'll probably overlook social parameters, like you might date somebody who has no qualifications, is incapable of working, has social responsibilities through the roof, like they've got 4 children and the dad's not on the scene. Because you're vulnerable because you're forced into this mindset. And equally for women, they might enter into certain things, like they might date guys because they'd like to get what they want. However, they've got no capacity to work. They're crap fathers. They've got no intellectual skills. They just seem to be a role model that they've represented in their past, a poor structured role model, and as a result, the woman thinks that's the one I should go with, and then they get stuck in a trap. I've got someone working, a colleague, she's got 4 children, actually I like drinking a car, and the old man's a violent pig. Used to probably beat her up, I don't know, but she's quite open about it. Or either that, she's just telling everyone he's like that, but she's quite happy to have 4 children with him, even though he had a mental health problem, because he was destructive and abusive to children. Now that she's got them, I don't know what she thinks. Maybe she's going to like restructure them, so they've got this potential personality disorder, but try to balance it out with feminised views. And if they're like 3 males in the family group, they're going to look to what the male role model was, and they're going to look to their dad. And if has mental health problems, they're going to take them on, or they've already got them. They've already got them built in. So It's a bit messed up, really. I don't know why somebody would want to do that model, but people will do. They think, well, there's a survival. But you don't need to be a violent thug to get what you want. Sometimes you just need patience. And it's about application of pressure. You need the balance. You know, it's kind of, you need to... this is another thing that's good with Jordan Peterson's videos. He was talking about basically the amalgamation of your dark side in shadow work, and that's very true. You basically, you see components in your character that you don't like, but you need to make them as functional as possible and utilise them. So like if you've got a temper, how do you direct that? How do you control that? Can you develop skills to channel it? Do you need to be violent? Is there ways you can get what you want and pressurise people? Can you balance it? Can you maintain it? Can you do all sorts of things to improve it? And also know your limits. And it's also interesting about the psyche, and that we're a number of different conscious and subconscious components, I guess, driving forces and influences within our own psyche. So there's manifestations and there's other things, and basically, you know, people might say, well, I don't believe in, you know, this and that, but to be honest, you're like you're one platform built on another. So all your cells have their own structure in place, their own functionality. They serve a set pattern. They might not have the intellectual capacity, but maybe they do. Maybe it's in some quantum field that we don't fully understand. But who are we to judge the level of consciousness? You know, the cells in my arm have got. I don't know. Or my organ. How smart is my liver? I don't know. I know that if I didn't have it, I'd die. So it formulates a part of my psyche, and also it influences the behaviour. Other thing that's interestingly mentioned in his video was about talked about Venus and Mars, and that when someone's in love, that kind of like possessed, the person becomes possessed, which is true. This primal part of your brain takes over, and you're at war with the sexes. You want this woman in your life, and you'll be willing to do anything to get her. And that's where you can become the savage. And you have to. The only way to re-engage that is you have to experience that savage, primal behaviour, and then work on reshaping it and remoulding it. But you need to experience it. It's a bit like somebody who's a soldier. They need to train under pressure to know how to react. They can look at the manual, but when they're under pressure, they become somebody else, and that personality needs to be worked on. Oh, it's like the Incredible Hulk. You know, the guy's got high mental capacities, but he's not able to do it. I think in the let's park up somewhere. So many bloody cars everywhere. You like to go there. Where else have we got? There's nowhere. I could go in there. Yeah. Oh, it's just big sign off. That's what you're saying.